Well, hi everyone. We are about to start our webinar for today, and I see a lot of attendees already coming in. So, welcome to our panel discussion about strategies for managing your freelance translation empire. My name is Tanya Faulkner, and with me today I have
Robert Rogi. That's me. I'm the co-host.
And we're both from Wordbee, the makers of the Wordbee translation management system. And for this event, we invited 4 experienced translators to be our panelists. And the topics we're going to discuss are about marketing and selling yourself, how to use technology to improve your business, and also how to run your business. And we're just waiting on our last panelist, which should be here shortly, but we're just gonna go ahead and start until he joins us.
Cool. And we are recording the panel discussion, and we'll share it on on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, so you can check it out there in recording. For the live attendees, you can ask questions at any time. Just write them in on the chat. It should be on the right-hand side of the screen. And then we might take the question during the discussion. Sometimes we also take the questions at the end of the discussion, and then we kind of write a blog post or we try to answer the questions at the end. So either way. We'll also announce some cool stuff for you guys at the end of the webinar, so be sure to stick to the end. It's like a little Easter egg for anyone who stays all the way through. All right, cool.
So before we get started on questions, we'd love for you guys to just introduce yourselves quickly. Maybe we can start with Nikki.
Hi, I'm Nikki Graham. I translate from Spanish into UK English, mostly tourism text, and I live in Bournemouth in the UK.
Thank you. Brief and short, right? Jost.
My name is Jost Zetzsche. I live at the Oregon coast in the US, so on the West Coast. I translate from English into German. I mostly do technology and marketing.
Thank you. And Vasiliki.
Hi, I'm Vasiliki. I live in London. I have been a translator for quite a while now, translating from English and German into Greek. And at the moment, I'm working as a manager, localization manager at a betting company, which is a different type of career, but still, yeah.
Thank you.
What kind of company did you say?
Betting, like gaming.
Betting.
Yeah.
Like sports betting and stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad I've never tried that. I will get hooked.
I think it's very easy to do that, but it's at the same time, in a weird way, very interesting. I don't know why, but yeah.
Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with our questions. Before we were recording, we were talking about what would be the one piece of advice that that each panelist would have for translators. And since we're sort of in the process here of providing information about how translators can build their businesses, I think we should start with Nikki's. So Nikki, what was your one major piece of advice? And let's start with that. I think that's an interesting place to start.
Okay, well, I mean, my basic point is that there's an awful lot of advice out there. Whether you're able to go to conferences or attend webinars or not, you've got access to the internet, you've got loads of blogs and articles to read. And a lot of these things can even contradict each other. So I think that the main thing that you need to do is to try to understand yourself. What is it that you do well? What is it that you want from your business? How much do you really want to earn? How much time do you really want to spend working or studying? And then go from there. I think that if you should just digest the information and then before you rush headlong into, I don't know, trying to do a course or doing this or whatever it is that somebody has advised you to do or how to contact clients, just take a step back and think, is this what I really want to do? Am I really the type of person that does this type of thing? Or would I perhaps like to follow a different path?
Cool. I think that's also great advice for not just for newbies, but for really anybody who's looking for the next step in their career. You know, even if you were an experienced translator, I'm sure you come to decisions that you have to make like that all the time, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's advice really from the heart, because, you know, a few years ago when I first like landed on social media, you're just bombarded with all these messages, really. You know, tweets, Facebook, do this, do that, etc., etc. And it can be a bit disconcerting when you sort of like think to yourself, well, I can't do all of this. I've just got no time. I've got no inclination. Should I feel bad about myself because I'm not doing this? And so that's why I think one of the best things that you can do is just to try to take a step back and to think about what it is that you want, really, rather than perhaps being persuaded to follow somebody else's path, which might not be the right one for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really good advice. But I think it does not mean that you should not listen to other people's advice, right? So I think that it does make a lot of sense to read books and blogs and go to webinars, et cetera. And it's just a matter of you filtering out what you need and what you don't need, I think.
Exactly.
You know, it doesn't make sense for you to completely reinvent the wheel if somebody has already come up with a method of, say, marketing yourself or organizing your workday that fits well. It might be really helpful to listen to that person's advice and follow that. It's just like you say, you know, there's no cookie cutter method for being a translator. I mean, part of what I think we cherish as freelance translator is that little bit of freedom that we do have. I mean, there is a lot of freedom that we don't have. You know, we do have to make money, we do have to make a living, et cetera. But we do have some freedom, of course, and that is exactly, I think, what you're saying, that that freedom should be to decide that it's up to us how to run a business and not up to somebody else who dictates us how to run a business.
Exactly. I mean, you know, I've talked to quite a few people recently because I've started up the translation chats, and you know, some people really are floundering. I think, you know, they are bombarded by so much information, they don't really know what to do, and that's why I think that they do need to just, you know, stop and think a little bit, because it's not a good idea, I think, for anybody to just rush headlong and do what perhaps a so-called better known or better translator does. Do you see what I mean? Just copying somebody else's way of doing something is not necessarily a very good idea for them, because they're not necessarily going to be in the same situation or have the same language pairs or the same specialization or anything.
Mm-hmm. So do you think it takes also a lot of testing and just, you know, trying different things and figure it out?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Maybe we should have more articles out there about failing and then getting back up on your feet again.
Yeah, well, but you know, that's exactly part of the problem. I think that it's so hard to write about failures, right? That people don't do it because they are, you know, they feel like it reflects negatively on them, and of course, if you want to say something publicly, you want to talk about successes. So yes, I agree. We should be brave enough to talk about failures and how we, you know, fall on our faces, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what we should talk about: how to fall on your faces.
Yeah, maybe that should be like the next part of the panel. Maybe we should talk about all the times we fell on our faces.
Well, guys, let me interrupt you quickly. So, Juan, thanks for joining us as well.
Thank you. So sorry for the delay. Technical failures here, you know, technology and stuff. But here I am.
No problem. Do you also just like quickly want to introduce yourselves to our listeners?
Okay, I am Juan Pablo Sanz, and I am a game translator. I have been a translator for the last 10 years. Oh my God, I'm getting old. Basically my most beautiful project has been FIFA 2017, 18, 19, and that's something I really like. So I would like to share my opinion with you. Right now, I am also specializing a little on social media and how to develop online businesses, because I think that's by leveraging on my social media, I can really make a better translation business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we were just talking about what the one thing was basically that you'd like to share with everyone today. You know, that your one piece of advice to give to everyone that wants to build or has a translation business. And Nikki already shared some great thoughts. Maybe Vasiliki, do you want to go? Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think if I had to just pick one thing, would be to value your time. Like the freelance translator has to be able to value their time in terms of having a proper balance between how many hours you work and how many hours you leave and do whatever else you need to be doing. And also, this means like also valuing your time, valuing how much you have to be paid for it kind of thing that you're doing. I think it's one of the things that they are very important, and a lot of people, because they just want to start with their business or more of their business, it's the one compromise that they do, and it really affects the everyday life. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go
ahead.
You can go. No, you can go.
I lost my train of thought. You go for it.
Okay.
I lost it.
Well, I was just wondering if you have any specific time management tips, like when we say that translators should value their time, I guess, like what do you really mean by that? Like what in a practical sense?
I would say it's very important to be able to see. I mean, if someone works for more than 8 hours per day, it's not good. I mean, it has happened to me in the past that I was just picking up jobs because people were choosing to come and have their work done through me. I was saying yes to everything. So you have to learn how to say no as well, be able to evaluate what kind of work comes in, like in the sense of how much time it will take. I mean, I don't have like a proper tip in terms of time management, but what I would say is to be more when you get a job, to be 100% sure that you have seen exactly how much time it will take from you, so that you avoid at the end of the day working like, I don't know, 12, 14 hours per day in order to just make it to a deadline that you have agreed on.
Mm-hmm. How would you think, like, how do you figure that out? I mean, you start out, you need to take on jobs, you know, everyone has some bills to pay. The balance between having too much work and maybe not having enough.
Well, I think that this is always the trap that everybody might fall into. When I started freelancing back in the days, I used to have another job as well. So basically, it wasn't that I was only supporting myself through freelancing. I'm not saying that everybody should do that, but it gave me a kind of security in the sense that I could see how much could be. I mean, I could afford to do, and I could afford to work. I think it's a very personal thing as well. Like every person has their own idea of how much is too much for them. It's just, I don't know exactly how to describe this, but I think you need to be aware and say your no's when they have to be said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Well, I you know what we also touched on briefly before we started the webinar here is that I think that translators, freelance translators, tend to have like a worship of sacrificial working, you know, sort of by, you know, being proud of the fact that you just work 16-hour days, or that you work through the last 5 weekends and through several nights. And that's not something to be proud of. I think that's something that you need to change. You know, there is a problem that you have, and you need to work on, you know, having a, well, what we said, good work-life balance. But you know, what we should strive for is, and you know, every person in the regular mind would agree, is to be as efficient as we can in as few hours as possible, I think, and still, you know, provide really good work products. And I think that's we sort of, and I don't know why that happens and where it happened, but you know, if you look at you know, there's a couple of translators who have comic strips out there, you know, who produce little cartoons, and most of the cartoons are about overworking, you know, and which I think is sort of which shows that it's a really important topic that we are dealing with and are dealing with not very well. You know, we all have families, or if we don't have families, we have private lives, we have horses and chickens and whatever we have, right? And we want to spend time with them as well. And so I think we got to get away from that concept of working long hours is a good thing and something to be proud of and something to be shared on social media. I mean, that's, I think we shouldn't do that. If we work a 16-hour day, don't share it on Twitter, because it's not something you should, you know, highlight and be proud of.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
exactly. I mean, ladies first. Come on. I know we're in the 2018 and so on, but ladies first.
I was just going to say that before the webinar started, I was saying that I sometimes get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start working at 4. But that's not because I've set my alarm. That's because I've gone to bed early enough to sleep. I actually don't ever set my alarm. And this morning, for example, well, last night I slept 9 hours, which was the first time for months that I've slept 9 hours. And I was actually 15 minutes late getting my daughter up as a result. But I think to myself, well, actually that's good. You know, I didn't need to get up for work this morning, so you know, it wasn't bad that I slept in, and now I feel so much brighter today. And I try to do that every night. I go to bed early enough and I sleep for as long as my body wants me to sleep. And then I'll get up, and maybe that means I get up at 4, maybe that means 5, maybe that means 6, or today 15 minutes late for my daughter. But I just think
what does your daughter say?
What does she say? Well, she gets 15 minutes extra anyway, and she just gets her mum saying, "Hurry up! I overslept. Get up."
I mean, I need to say that I agree with Jost. I mean, I have seen that many colleagues feel proud of themselves, like, oh yeah, I didn't sleep yesterday, or I didn't have holidays, or whatever. I mean, I think that we should find a way. And maybe this will sound a little controversial, but we should eventually try to scale up our business in terms that we all know that at the end of the day we need to pay bills and we like money. I mean, who doesn't like money? I mean, money is never enough, to be honest. Okay, we always have something to pay and stuff. So we should try to scale up our business. We cannot be always in our business. We need to try to be on our business. I mean, we should start like delegating, if I may say that. Okay, so yeah, there are legal ways you can do it. Because, for example, this week I had a project, 16,000 words, and then other clients came, and I was like, oh my God, I mean, I cannot do this. I cannot possibly do this. So what did I do? I just called a little trusted team that I have of translators. And I told them, hey, do you want this job? Do you want this? Okay, I mean, because otherwise I cannot, I mean, it's impossible. So I am gaining something. My hour is getting more value because of that. I mean, because I am working and someone else is working on something on another part. So I can actually delegate and I can scale up my business eventually. I think what we should always look for as translators or as sole entrepreneurs is to scale up our business, because otherwise we're going to, I mean, you can end up burning out yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, it's very, very difficult to keep up with all the clients and stuff. Sometimes you need to work very late and stuff, and you say, well, I mean, it's not worth it. You need to scale up your business, and we need to get rid of this scare of delegating and say, no, yeah, I can do it better than everybody else. That's not true. I mean, I think if you have a pool of trusted translators, you can delegate it with 99% of confidence that they're going to do a good work. That's my opinion.
That's interesting. I just, it seems to me like some translators might have that kind of mindset, but then others just really enjoy translating, you know? So, but that's interesting. So what does the panel think then? Like, should translators be dealing with work-life issues by trying to scale up their business and delegate tasks to other translators? What does the panel think?
I mean, I would say that it's a solution if you have people that you trust, but again, you can actually find other, like, there are other solutions as well to that. I mean, you can delegate, but if you don't delegate, you can try to basically get more time for the work that you have to do. I mean, deadlines are, and I'm saying that from, again, the project manager kind of point of view, deadlines are set in the interest of the business. But if someone will tell you that they need more time to give something that is really good, if you really trust them, and if the person is like really confident, they will actually get more time, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have something online or printed out that is not good. So also the translators should, like freelancers, they should like get over the fear of not getting more work, because I think that it's like a circle, all this situation. Like people are always getting more and more and more things because they think that, you know, oh my God, today I'm working, tomorrow I might not be working. So let's pick it up because, you know, people will know me. But the thing is that if you work too much, then probably after 16 hours of work, well, there are very high chances that your work is not going to be good, because 16 hours, I mean, even after 8 hours, you're not going to be doing good work, because it's like someone that goes to an office, they work 8 hours, but in these 8 hours, you have actually time that you speak to a colleague, you go for lunch, you go for the toilet, have a tea, a coffee, this and that. So it's actually, you end up doing good work for maybe 5 or 6 hours per day. And the translator that is in front of the laptop or a computer or whatever for 8 hours, you know, it's like you use your brain. After 12 hours, definitely, I don't think that the quality is as good as it would be.
And I think
earlier.
another thing is we've been talking about delegating work when there's too much work, and I think that's certainly what one good way of dealing with being more productive is, or what dealing with how you can deal with too much work. But another way, of course, also is by using technology, and you know, we briefly touched on that before, but I mean, technology, so the idea of translation technology, and that's the whole range of translation technology that's out there, is of course not to translate for us, but to make us more productive in the translation process. And so, you know, to be honest, one of the greatest joy that I derive from my work as a translator is to find ways to make myself more productive with my tools, and to see that, you know, that this whatever 2,500 words myth that we talk about, that how much a translator should work per day, really is something typically of the past, because we can be so much more productive than 2,500 words a day, I think, usually. There's exceptions, of course, depending on what you do. But I think that is one area where translators, I think, are really challenged. And I think that that's true for every translator, to at least be aware of what kind of technology is available and how that technology might fit into his or her workload, and how it can alleviate some of the stresses and some of the pressure, and I think that's something that every translator needs to know. That we did say that there is no cookie cutter method, and that's true, and that's also true for technology. There is not one set of technology that is good for everyone, but I think what is important is that you continue to educate yourself on what is out there, and continue to evaluate, is this good or is this not good? Is this helpful or is this not helpful?
Oh, and what technologies do you recommend? I mean, is that machine translation, right? What machine translation have you seen is good for your business if you use it, or what technologies do you use for that?
Oh, I'm not even thinking about, I mean, machine translation is certainly one technology, but I'm not thinking about machine translation so much. I'm thinking of, you know, of anything from a from a set of CAT tools to ways of processing files to good terminology work, whether in CAT tool or outside a CAT tool. I am thinking of machine translation in some cases. Also, I'm thinking about how you know, so machine translation, for instance, is really progressing right now, I think, as far as not only as far as what the results are, but as far as how we can work with machine translation right now and not post-edit, but use it as a resource like other resources, depending on your language combination, depending on what kind of field you work in, what kind of text you work in. And there are just no, you know, there are no static answers because it constantly changes. And I think it's really fun to, or really interesting to follow developments and continue to evaluate. Something that was true 6 months ago might not be true anymore today because things have changed. And CAT tools, for instance, have a different way of dealing with external data that comes from all kinds of sources, translation memories, term bases, machine translations, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not thinking of any specific technology, but you know, I mean, so I'm writing a newsletter and it's called the Translator's Toolbox, and I do imagine technology being like tools in a toolbox, right? I mean, so it's you have the whole toolbox. You often don't use the hammer, but if you do need a hammer, you want to use the hammer. You don't always use pliers, but if you do want pliers, then you want to use pliers, et cetera, et cetera. And that's, I think, your computer is your toolbox, and you should be in control of how you apply the different tools you have on your computer for your work to make yourself more efficient. Not to do the work for you, but to work faster, more efficient on the projects you're working on.
One way that I became faster at translating is I started using Dragon NaturallySpeaking. So dictating my translations. You know, this was great actually because, you know, your hands are free. You can do exercises while you dictate. I was actually using it primarily because I was using a treadmill, so a standing desk while I was translating. Unfortunately, I've hurt my foot and I can't do that at the moment, but I was managing to exercise and dictate my translations at the same time, and it was great. Posture was good, getting some exercise and actually managing to do the work much quicker.
Okay.
Well, you get your first draft done in the CAT tool, okay, much quicker, which means that you then start editing a bit sooner than you would have done otherwise, and your hands don't get so tired.
And depending on the text, not just a bit sooner, but much sooner often, right? Yeah. Because you can be, again, depending on what you're translating, you can be radically much faster with voice recognition once you get the hang of it. And yeah, that's a good example, I think.
I know some people say that they don't like it, they don't like the sound of their own voice or whatever, but I think you just need to give it a go. If you want to be faster, I mean, nothing has changed, you're just speaking it, you know, and you can be so much faster and actually be more relaxed at the end of the day and not so tired.
Okay, that's a good advice, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So how long until how long until your customers expect you to work? Or really? You can't hear me?
No, I can. You're a little delayed, I think.
Okay. Well, I was just going to ask, how much longer until your clients expect you to produce more words per day because you're translating faster?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not the type of person that I think my clients turn to for thousands upon thousands of words per day anyway. That's just not what I do. I don't know about other people. I know that there are all sorts of claims out there about how many thousands of words that people translate, but the thinking process is the same, really. So some things are easier to translate, but some of the things that I have, to be honest with you, if I typed it, I wouldn't be any slower, because I'm sitting there going, how am I going to translate this phrase? Because it's got to sound pretty. It's not something that's necessarily that easy.
Totally.
You mean we shouldn't tell clients about our translation technology because, you know, we told them about cat tools and now they're asking for lots of discounts? Is that your idea behind it, Robert?
Of course not.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking more like there's this famous example of the freeways in Los Angeles from I think it was like the 70s, where they were like, you know, they had tons of traffic problems, so they decided to build these huge freeways and they were going to solve traffic once and for all. You know, so they built all these huge freeways, and then what they found was that people just started driving more, and they didn't solve the traffic problem at all. So I was thinking more like that, you know, like if there's an increase in output, I think, you know, there's only a matter of time until that the new output is the expected one, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
But I was actually thinking about freeways in Los Angeles. So
well,
like,
I mean,
yep.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was just quickly going to say, but it's up to us how many words we accept per day anyway, isn't it? Didn't somebody say before you had to say no?
Oh,
You
yeah.
had to learn. You have to learn when to say no about how many words you do as well. So.
Well,
So
I mean, I think that it would be not. I mean, so I think we do see pressure on the lower end of the market by lowering prices, by prices that have gone down. I think maybe four of us who have been in the field or have been translators for a long time have not to deal with prices that have gone down. But I think some of the, you know, of the very young translators and translators who are sort of accepting anything that comes along probably accept work, or many do accept work that is paying less than it did 5 or 10 years ago, which of course, you know, that shouldn't be. I mean, prices have risen, you know, inflation is there, and it's crazy that that prices for translation work has gone down. And so I think what clients are doing is, rather than saying do more words, they're saying I'm going to pay you less per word, and that's their way of saying do more words, because you have to still end up with a living. And I think that is you know, where you as a translator have to distinguish yourself in a way that you are not reliant on those kinds of jobs. And of course we haven't talked about specialization, but that's, you know, of course translators distinguish themselves by becoming specialized in something and by making a name for themselves in something. So, you know, if you want to become a FIFA translator, you know, there's only a few who can do it. And Juan, Pablo can, you know, ask for good money because of that, most likely. And I think that's how you deal with the price pressure or pressure to translate more words. You become specialized and you become indispensable in the field that you're working on, and clients will of course pay the rate if it's a reasonable rate you're asking for, that you are, and it's a rate that will only go up rather than down.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think the main problem for many translators, especially when we are starting, is that we are just chasing butterflies. I mean, we don't know how to find the clients, and that's something that we need to set up a system. I mean, I'm not installing social media right now. I have seen that if you're just chasing butterflies, of course you will accept whatever comes your way, because you are not. I mean, your profile, your social media profile, the way you are attracting people is not efficient. So you're chasing after the work instead of work coming your way. If work is coming your way, those clients are more likely to accept your prices. Whereas if you're after the work, people are going to say, well, yeah, I mean, you want this job, but I have 7, 8, 1,000 translators that are more willing to do it for a lower price. So I mean, if you attract the flies rather than going after the flies are going to pay you what you want. I think that's why I think you need to build a very efficient brand online right now for that.
So you become a pot of honey that attracts flies rather than you.
Yeah, rather than you going after them with your hand, because it's not. I mean, yeah, I mean, because it's what you're saying, and so you need to set up a system You need to set up a system in a way that you need an opt-in page, and then you need to email market them and stuff to teach them to edu selling. You know what I mean? Educate them and sell them what you are and how you charge, etc. Because I mean, to be honest, for example, I have been studying the marketing strategies. If you come directly and tell them, hey, this is the price, people are going to say, hey, why is this the price? You're trying to rip me and stuff, and they're going to try to find someone lower. But if you educate them, you teach them, hey, this is the translation is like this, blah blah blah. Are you interested in this? People are more willing to accept you because you are educating them and you're telling them, hey, this is my process, this is what you need, this is what you need. If you want to do it yourself, do it. If you want a professional, you can call me. I mean, you don't even sell them. You even just give them the option to do it themselves. Of course, I mean, they're not going to do it themselves, but you can teach them how to do it themselves, or you say, oh, you can call me if you are interested in that. People will eventually come your way. I have found that's a more efficient way of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say something about the technology, Nikki. You said that maybe we shouldn't share what kind of technology we're using, or you said something like that. And I'm not sure that I completely agree with that. So I think we are not supposed to necessarily, I mean, it's not our duty to share what kind of technology we're using, but I think if clients are interested in what kind of technology we're using, if they, then I think we should be able to tell them without being, without beating around the bush. We should say what tools we are using, but present it in a way that, in a truthful way that doesn't diminish our own work in it. So our own value in it. Even if let's say many people do use machine translation as one of the tools. If they do, I think there is nothing wrong with them sharing that with the client, but explaining to the client that that's a very different process compared to what he would do or she would do if they would go out to Google Translate and have it translated on on the web for free. So of course that's up to every. I mean, there's no cookie cutter method. There's no one way for everyone. But I think that if we are educated enough about technology and we truly understand what technology does and can do for us, then we shouldn't be shy, I think, to share with our clients how we're using it and what we are doing with it. That's what I think.
Okay, well, I think I was specifically thinking about the fact that so many people have complained that since Cat Tools came along, agencies have just used that to bring the prices down, by saying, okay, I'm not paying you for this, or I'm going to pay you just a small percentage for fuzzy matches or reps or whatever. And it just seems to be just something that is just continuing to grow, really. That people are expected to spend quite a bit of money on the Cat tool in the first place, but they're no longer receiving the benefits in some ways because so many agency clients are just saying, I'm just not going to pay you. And I don't think it's just the agency clients. I think that a lot of the end clients are also quite aware that you don't pay for repetitions anymore, or for 75 or whatever 85% matches is only going to be a small percentage of the price. So I think in some ways it's a shame. 10 years ago people would be able to use Cat Tools and get the whole rate for every single word. Now that's just changed.
Yeah, but I think it's because we're educating people on the price, not on the value. You are offering things on the price. Hey, I can go cheaper. You're not offering value. That's the main problem of our market. I think we are competing against each other with the price, not with the value we provide. I think that's because I have seen that everything is going up, but I, for example, have more or less the same rate. I started from a very low rate because I was in Venezuela, and people were looking down at me and say, hey, yeah, well, you can work for less and stuff. But I have grown. But I have seen that at some point you get stagnant, and it's a shame because I think we need to compete on value, not on price. That's the main thing. As you say, I'm not an expert in legal translation, but I am an expert in sports. I am an expert in games. So I mean, that's my value. That maybe your value is in technical. I cannot do the technical. I'm not interested in doing technical translations, to be honest. I get bored with them, to be honest. I mean, so we should adapt ourselves to the value we provide, not to the price. But unfortunately, it's going that way.
So how do you, like, so we're talking about like educating the customers and sort of trying to sell value instead of price. So like, where would you start? Like, what would be the three main things that you would try to tell a customer, for example, or like the basic things, like when you first have that conversation, how would you start with value?
Okay. Firstly, firstly, they would come to my way, to my web, because they are looking for a translator. So I would have a landing page where I offer them value in the first place. And then when they give me their emails, I will start marketing them on my email list with a sequence, and where I will teach them what they need, what translation is like, blah blah blah. I mean, so they can understand the process, because many clients think that translating is only, oh, you put in Google Translator and that's it. I think you need to teach them it's not like that. The advantages of a professional translator, what a specialized translator is, and blah blah blah. I mean, all the things that we're explaining here, you need to explain it to the client. And I think the best way is by the email marketing, because if you're talking with with a with a client, I mean, unless there's nobody else around, I mean, unless you can talk to the client in private and you can tell them, hey, we do this like this, our value is this and this, it's very difficult, because they will have other people already talking about prices. You're talking about education. So, I mean, you need to try to stand out in terms of you're educating the client, not competing on prices. That's my opinion, at least, the
Do
way I see
you,
it.
I feel like this would be working with end clients, but what if you work with an agency, or in general, like, question to the panel, would you rather work, or what's the pros and cons of working with an agency, in opposite to working with the end client?
Mm. That's for me or that's for everybody?
Everybody really, but I mean, according, like, in terms of your question, I feel like what you say about email marketing, I'm not so sure how that would work out with an agency, because I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing with their translations. But yeah, for everyone really.
No, I'm talking about end clients. I'm not talking about agencies. Agencies are already competing on price. So, I mean, you don't need to compete on, I mean, you just need to find, I mean, you just need to be clear that there are certain agencies in certain countries. I don't mean to say anything, but for example, I'm sure a country, an agency in Venezuela can pay we can pay way less than an agency in the US, for example. So, I mean, you need to say, do I want to wait? Do I want to work for these agencies or for the agencies in the US? Um, the other way, because I have seen that many no, many oh my god, rookies, many new translators, they just come like, hey, yeah, I studied I studied, so I deserve the best rate ever. See, okay, I mean, come on, mate. I mean, I when I started, I was basically eating whatever. I mean, I was basically taking whatever rate came in my way. So I think it's fair that you start from low, because it's not like you deserve something. You need to set up a system, and then you need to make yourself aware. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to receive 0.10, 0.12, 0.16. This, yeah. I mean, it's not like you're going to receive it. You need to make your way up.
What about the rest of you? Would you rather work with the end client or with an agency, or like, when would you pick which of those?
Me personally, I don't. I mean, I would prefer to go directly to the client, because the money that you will end up getting are, I think, much more than an agency, unless you go to. I mean, it has to do as well with the language I'm translating into, which is Greek, which is like pretty low rates. Anyways, or if it would have been an agency, I would prefer like a company, mostly a company where you have like the opportunity to get bigger rates. I mean, that's for me where, like, after having already been a translator for X amount of time. If you start, obviously you will start from lower rates, but I think, and this is from my personal experience, and I'm not going to say about my own work, but I'm going to talk about the translators that I choose in my everyday life. I think the work that you do speaks for yourself. Like I have in my mind 10 people that I work with that I would pay them literally whatever they would like to be paid, because there has never been an issue. There has never been, it's always good work. So, you can start from lower, and even with an agency or a client, your work will speak at
Yeah.
any point of your career. But yeah, to be like back to your question, I would definitely go for the client. Yeah, because you can also talk to them and actually find out what they actually need. Because the agency, sometimes, information gets lost, and or it's not always the best way, let's say, without wanting to be mean to the agencies that have given work to me and other people as well. But yeah, it's just a matter of preference.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, to me, it doesn't make a difference whether I work for an agency or a direct client. I expect agencies that I work with to pay me my rate, and if they pay me my rate, then I'm very happy to work with them. I also know that I said that I mostly work in technology, that I wouldn't be able to work for certain clients if I wouldn't go through agencies, clients that interest me, that offer interesting work. And there are advantages to working with agencies. I don't have to do my own marketing. I don't have to prepare files. I cut out a part of my work. And of course, I like to work with end clients, but I also know that while I might be able to get higher rates with them, I also have to do more work. So I think there is not necessarily the either or. I think that I know that some people have really strong feelings about it, and of course it depends again on your language combination, your subject matter, your expertise, your what you're doing. But I think there is, to me, I never saw the the either or problem there. I've always worked with a mix of clients, and I'm quite happy the way that is. And I'm getting well paid. I mean, what's well paid, right? I mean, I'm getting paid adequately by both my direct clients and by agencies. And I think that one false assumption that people have when it comes to agencies is that agencies can't be negotiated with. Of course they can be. If they have high quality work where they know there's only a handful of translators who can do this work adequately and in a timely fashion, they of course are willing to negotiate their prices and don't just go with the prices that they first offer you the job with, right? Also, I want to say something about starting with low prices. So I think that's an okay advice, but I think if you start with a low price with a customer, you'll never get higher with that customer.
Exactly.
It's possible to start with low prices with just customers who get more experience, but you will have to change customers. I mean, it's just not feasible. I mean, I have never experienced that I started at a lower than my typical rate with customer XYZ and was able to raise my rates radically in 2 years from then or 6 months from then. That's not happening. I mean, that's just not the way the market works, I think. It might happen every once in a while, but very rarely. So if you are accepting lower rates, I think in the back of your mind has to be, well, but I'm going to let that customer go in 6 months from now, because at that point I want higher rates.
I mean that's why I was saying that for example, when I started, I was working for people from Asian countries. I'm not going to say names. Okay, I mean, so I knew it was a temporary thing because I wanted higher rates. But I said, I mean, I need to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
I know my quality is not good enough to charge what I'm charging right now. I mean, so
exactly.
I think it's fair because I mean, as I always said, and many people always complain about that, but I say nobody is forced to pay for your education. Nobody put you a gun there and make you go in a debt of 30K or to pay your university. I mean, you need to be humble enough to accept that you're learning. Even though you have a diploma, you're learning. You cannot just go there and say, oh yeah, I'm the best translator ever, because you're not. I mean, you just left university, you don't know anything about life. Like, I'm still learning. I am 31, 10 years translating. I'm still learning a lot of things. I am sure that when I get other people's age, I will say, oh yeah, when I was 30, I was completely naive, because you see in perspective, you always are learning students. So I mean, that's my point. You cannot pretend, you cannot expect people to pay what other people with a lot more experience with you are gaining. I don't know. That's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say that I agree that you should think about how much you're earning per hour and not just focus on the rate that you're getting per word. So
yeah.
if you're aggressively going after direct clients and you're sending out email after email, or you're attending their conferences or their events, etc., etc., you know, this is going to not only just take you away from home, which in my case is impossible as a mother, but you know, this is going to be very, very time consuming, and there's absolutely no guarantee at the end of it that that client will even give you 1,000 words, let alone the 10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 that you might need to actually have made that effort worthwhile.
Exactly.
So, I mean, of course, I will work for a direct client if they come to me, and that means that, I mean, I can actually do it. But to be honest, sometimes having to deal with other translators, if a direct client comes to me, I'm going to have to find somebody to either translate it so that I can revise it, or I'm going to have to find a reviser. You know, this might sound easy, but it's not. You know, you email people, no, I can't do it. They don't reply to you. You wait, you think, when am I going to contact the next person? And then, you know, suddenly all this time when you were supposed to be spending doing a translation that you have a deadline for, instead you've been trying to find a translator and or a reviser for this client. You know, it's not as easy as it sounds, and it's not necessarily going to give you as much money as you think it's going to in the long run, unless you
have a system in place.
well, unless you've perhaps got more time to put into it. You know, I don't, because at a certain time of the day my daughter comes home and I need to be there for her, and so I can't be there in the afternoon answering emails, which means that going aggressively after direct clients just isn't a possibility. But if my website or LinkedIn brings one in, brilliant, that's great.
I think it's a matter also of networking and being, you know, like part of every freelancer, not just a translator, but every freelancer that might be doing whatever in whatever field. They need to be networking and be always, you know, on different kind of ways, know people from the same profession, so you can actually have, not always, but you know, like much more easier someone to revise your text or work with you or whatever. I find it, I mean, I started as a translator in Greece, and I think that UK is not a very friendly for translations country, because it's much more difficult to network here. Even if it sounds a bit weird, it's much more difficult in Greece. I don't know, I finished uni, I knew already so many people, and most of them, they moved to the UK. So so I think it depends on where you're located and how you're able to use, I don't know, social media, different platforms that actually work for us translators, to be able to find people that they can advise you, introduce you. A lot of, I mean, to me, a lot of times it was happening that my friends were giving me jobs or passing my name in other clients. But another thing that is very important is that someone mentioned that already, is if you are specialized on something, then you have more chances to be able to work with direct clients and have the things work out the way that you would like them to, and have a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean, on specialization, mentioned again, sorry if I could just quickly to say that I think actually that it's more important for not just for us to educate the clients, but actually we need to educate other translators. We need to really say to everybody, look, you cannot do everything and you cannot advertise yourself as such. You know, if every translator just picked just a few things to focus on, rather than pretending or advertising that they do medical and legal and technical and, which is just impossible really to do well, then the clients would soon get the message, because they would contact you and say, can you do this legal thing? And you say, no, I don't do legal, but I can put you in touch with somebody who can. Boom, you know, and then they've, you know, the client gets the message that way, that not every translator, just because you're a translator doesn't mean that, you know, you're a machine and you can do everything, you know?
Definitely. There's actually a question from one of the attendees, and also if anyone else has any questions, drop them in the chat. So the person's asking, do you think it makes a difference if you consider yourself a business or a freelancer?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if you have read the book that is called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Basically, he explains. I mean, there are four quadrants. He calls them. So, an employee, self-employed, and a businessman, and investor. Basically, if you're a self-employed, you are in the system. If you're a businessman, you're on the system. I don't know if you know what I mean. If you consider yourself a sole entrepreneur, you are the one who needs to run the accounts, run the business, run the marketing, talk with people, do all the work. Whereas if you try to scale up as a business, you need to, I mean, you delegate to other people. Basically, that's what I'm trying to do, because I am a little sick of always been translating. So I'm trying to put over the system and have a little more time, or at least not be so busy all the time.
What about, I mean, that's really if you want to have a team with you, basically. What if you're still like, you are a freelancer, you are just working by yourself, you're not planning on like growing a team, but do you think it still makes a difference in terms of how you present yourselves? Or Vasiliki, when you hire freelancers for your company, does it make a difference?
I think I'm not sure if I get the question 100%, but I would say that like you cannot just think of yourself just as a freelancer, because it makes a difference whether you are aware of what's like, I don't know how to explain that thing. Let's say like it looks much better even if you send your invoice on a PDF. Let's say like something that it's super basic, and it shows already that you consider yourself much more than just a freelancer, and you have like a bit more, put more effort in your job, and it's not like just, oh, I translate, I send you a file and it's over. I mean, yeah, more or less. I'm not very sure.
I think that we're really treading on dangerous ground if we say I'm just a freelancer and I'm just a translator. As a freelancer, of course, you are a business. You are a business that has a model of organization that is like a freelancer, but that doesn't make you less of a business. Of course, you are a business, and I think that freelancers have long, freelance translators have long suffered from a misunderstanding that they're not businesses. Businesses do certain things that freelancers tend to sometimes not do, and that's a real problem. Businesses do continued education. Businesses do have a strategic way of marketing themselves, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that translators often, of course, I'm interested in translation technology. I've been writing about that for many years, and I think part of the problem why we've had so many problems with accepting technology is because we don't see ourselves as businesses, and so it's very important, I think, that there should not be a difference between business and freelancer. A freelancer who tries to make money, living off something, has to be a business, and so that, I think it's really important, especially for young translators, to understand.
So like, so we were talking about being like in the business or on the business, and working on the business side of things. Like in terms of time management, like how much time should a translator be thinking, okay, I need to spend so much, hours or percentage of my working hours working on the business? Like how should that time be broken down or managed?
I think it
That's
depends on the person, just depends
Mm,
on how, I mean, obviously, if someone is quite well aware of social media and where he has to look for specific things, obviously, advertising themselves or like doing all the, everything that they need to do in order to be known, it might take them much less time than somebody else that has no clue and they need to Google in order to find out how to do specific things. I mean, it really depends. And it's, I think that every translator puts aside some time for finding new business or seeing what's on offer around, because you cannot really expect that you're a translator and you just wait and somebody is going to find you. You have actively to go out and look. I don't know, by going to, I mean, there are certain ways, several ways that you can actually try to see how to enter in this very difficult world. So I think it depends on the person and how long it takes them and how keen they are to actually also interact with other people, because we have not to forget that the translator has a very lonely life in front of a computer. So sometimes we really forget that you have to really go out, not out in a practical level, but you have to go and find out what's around in terms of people and networking and all these things.
Well, there are a number of real specialists in that area. I think that there's a number of books that have been written about how to market yourself as a freelance translator. There's, a number of social media accounts that you can follow. But I think what we said at the very start of this conversation, what Nikki said, is that what I think you need to do, and that's what also Vasiliki said, that you essentially look at the possibilities that are out there to market yourself and then evaluate what works for me and what makes sense for me. You need to make a decision whether how much you want to grow your business. Are you working toward essentially having an agency model at a certain point, or are you continuing to work as a freelance translator? If you are continuing to work as a sole entrepreneur, then you can only do so much, of course, and that of course has a lot to do with how you market yourself. So it really is, it's important for you to continually think about who you are and what you want to be, and that changes over time. I think that the person who you are 5 years ago is not the same than you are today, and thus the answers may be different about how to market yourself and how much time to set aside for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're already over time. Robert, did you have any more questions? Otherwise, I think we'll probably wrap this up. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we do have a question from someone here, from Anna. She asks, she's looking to get started in translation, and she has 3 questions, but I think the interesting one that maybe we could just get in is, do you suggest volunteering to get experience if you were trying to get started as a translator?
I would say, because I have done it, I would say if the topic really interests you and you do it not just to get some kind of to get work, but you do it also, because you believe in a cause or you believe in a project, then do it. It's an experience, you do it, but most of the times it doesn't really. I don't think that it's going to be the way to bring back client to you. So if you believe that for your own, like liking, then yeah, you can do it. It's practice, free practice.
I mean,
I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go. Juan, Pablo. Okay.
No, come on.
I was going to say 2 things. So I absolutely think you should volunteer, and that could be volunteering as a translator for things like Translators Without Borders or other organizations. Could even be taking part in crowdsourcing projects, Facebook, whatever. But I think even more importantly, I think you should volunteer in translators associations. That's not, you probably are not going to provide translation services for these organizations, but I'm a very strong believer in translators associations. Next week is the ATA, the American Translators Association Conference, that many of us are going to here in America, and so yes, volunteering is a really important part of being a translator, I think, and I think that you should do that as a newbie, and you should do that as an experience
later on.
And I think you are going to benefit from it immensely. Not in a way that you can track, this volunteer hour has given me this job, but in a way that you will overall be able to say, because of the experience and because of the effort that I put into it, I have grown professionally and personally as a translator, and that has benefited me.
Yeah. What I would like to add something. I started doing volunteer, of course, like I think everybody. But I think the most important thing here, and for Anna, for everybody who's there starting the career, is that you need to see yourself. I mean, that you need to present your services not as an employee. You're not an employee. You are trying to solve a person's problem. Okay. I mean, if you present yourself, oh yeah, I am applying for this job, you will always frame yourself in the employee. I mean, maybe you want to be an employee in-house for a translation agency, which is okay. But if you're looking for clients, you are a sole entrepreneur, and you need to present yourself as a problem solver, not as a person who is looking for a job. I don't know if you understand what I mean, because I have seen that many new translators are coming. They talk to the clients, as if they were their bosses. No, I mean, you should not be. You cannot frame yourself as an employee. You need to frame yourself as an entrepreneur at some point. I don't know. That's my opinion. Maybe you don't agree. But that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah, I think so too. That probably wraps up the questions. So.
All right. Yeah, I would just like to make one note, just for everyone that's listening and stuff, like, because in the end we added up like a whole bunch of advice, so don't feel overwhelmed, just take it one thing at a time. To pick any one of the things we talked about and decide if it's right for you, and then maybe start with that.
So, to make a checklist and go from the bottom to the top or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely not easy running your own business, whether you're a freelancer or or some other business. But there are tools that help you to keep like managing your projects and your invoices and everything. And to come back to what we were saying at the beginning, we have a little treat for like freelancers. So everyone that's been watching and that's registered for the webinar will be sending out a discount code for WordBee Translator for freelancers. So you'll get 40% off. You'll find the discount code in your emails in the next couple of days. And we hope that it's really going to make your translation work a lot easier to handle everything.
And that's like the first ever WordBee discount. You might be thinking like, oh yeah, oh, it's one of these discount codes, we see those all the time, but actually it's like the first discount ever for WordBee Translator, I think. So go check it out. You can do your invoices in WordBee. You can do, it has a cat tool. You can manage your translation memory. It does a bunch of stuff for your business.
Well, I guess that wraps it up. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It was really nice talking to you, and I think our listeners got a ton of value out of this conversation as well.
Hopefully.
And yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Awesome panel, everybody. You guys were great.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.